Hey, what's up, guys? Ethan Young here, career coach, former Scotiabank intern, current software consultant at Oracle, and I help employees move into higher paying jobs or students land their first internships or new grad roles. So, today we're talking about a pretty important topic. It's the idea of choking in interviews, right? So, we'll talk about what exactly is choking, why is it bad, really, for interviews. We'll talk about why we choke. It's good to understand why so that we can actually address those reasons and attack them. We'll talk about then the next preventative measures that we can take to actually stop choking, right? So, how to actually prepare for interviews, which a lot of people get wrong. How to actually warm up for interviews. Most people don't even warm up, but it is very crucial, especially if you're not used to being in a client facing position. Sometimes when I take interviews at work, I'm super warmed up because I just came from three back to back client calls, right? But most people are not in that position. And then at the end, we'll talk about how to deal with questions you don't know the answer to. So, really important topics that we're going to cover in today's session. Let's start off and talk about what exactly is choking. Okay. So, all choking really is you simply are asked with a question during an interview and you are completely frozen, right? So, a few things happen when we choke. And essentially, what happens is the fight, flight, or freeze mechanism kicks in, right? So this is like an anxiety, it's a stress response to a situation that our brain has, where either you are fighting your way through it, so you might kind of be really just speeding through your words, or you're flighting, you're fleeing, where you're also kind of just like really just going through your words and speaking really fast to the point where what you're saying doesn't even really make sense. It's not coherent, it's not cogent, or you freeze up, right? So a lot of people will freeze up when it comes to interviews and they just have no idea what to say, right? So the reason why we have this, well, it's a mechanism that our brain has developed over thousands of years, and it's actually meant to protect us. But normally, what this is supposed to do, this fight, flight, or freeze method, is back when we were cavemen and we were hunting with spears, we were fighting these bears and lions with our spears and protecting our community and in our tribes. We had these mechanisms so that one, whenever it was triggered, we would either fight, so we're going to fight the bear, or if the lion walks by, we're going to run away, or the freeze response. The reason why that helps with our survival is, let's say you're in a bush and there's a lion sneaking by, right? Really quietly. The lion doesn't know that you're in the bush, but you're hiding there. And the moment that you make a sound or you move around too much, the lion's going to know you're there and it's going to eat you, right? So the reason why we have a freeze response sometimes is so that it's to keep us still, right? To keep us still so that the lion doesn't find us. So these are meant to protect us from danger. But of course, today we're not fighting lions or really attacking bears. So our mind has simply just attributed these same fight, flight, or freeze responses to today's common and modern dangers, which are, the fear of getting rejected from an interview. Okay, so choking is really just this fight, flight, or freeze response that we get, and it shows up in, honestly, fast speech, right? So fast, I should say, fast, incoherent speech is something I see often. I see a lot of filler words get thrown in there too. So fast, incoherent speech, we get filler words that we start to see. We see a lot of pausing, right? So a lot of pausing. I mean, a lot of pausing. Okay, so these are some common symptoms that we see when it comes to choking in interviews. And the reason why it's something that we should address is because if we have great answers to these questions, but we can't really formulate them because we're so nervous and we have this fight, flight, or freeze response attacking us, we're not going to perform that well on the interview and we might not get the job, right? A recruiter or hiring manager wants to hire someone that they feel comfortable can speak well. Even if it's a very technical role, they want someone that can speak well, right? That's just, it doesn't matter what role you are, because at any role, you have to communicate with other people. Even if you're a software engineer, you're communicating with other people and your team members, okay? And especially if you're going to consultant or investment banking, you're constantly talking to people. You got to be able to speak well on an interview, okay? So, why do we choke? Okay, we'll talk about why we choke and then how we can actually prevent choking in our interviews. So, the reason why we choke, three reasons. One is lack of preparation. Two is we don't do warm ups before interviews. And three is we have too much nerves when it comes to the fear of rejection. And that's something that we need to work on through a social game. Okay. So let's talk about the first one, lack of preparation. If you've never gone through practice interview questions and rehearsed them, if you haven't researched the company a lot or the person that's interviewing you and you don't know much about the role itself, and you can't explain to me in 3 sentences what the job is that you're even interviewing for, you're cooked, right? And that's a lack of preparation that will show up in the interview and it's going to lower your confidence, okay? Doesn't matter how socially confident you are, if you are not doing that basic preparation, you're cooked. The second reason why we choke is no warm up. Okay, so before you go into an actual interview, you should be warming up. You need to become socially lubricated. Okay, I'll talk about a little warm up that you can do before your interview a little later on in point four. The third point here, why we choke, is due to nerves. Okay, and nerves comes from the fight, flight, or freeze response, right? So that's that adrenaline, that's that cortisol response that we get, the stress response, and it makes us a bit tight, our muscles tight, maybe even gives us headaches sometimes, and we show up on these interviews not really showing up as our full best self. Okay, so what we want to do when it comes to nerves is we need to understand why we are getting nervous, right? So for some people, they honestly get nervous in interviews because they don't have that much experience with social interaction and talking to strangers. Because if you think about it, an interview is simply talking to a stranger. You don't know this person. You've never met the person, most likely, right? So a lot of people are really nervous in those interviews because they are not used to speaking to strangers. Okay. And that's something we can work on. The other reason why people really get nervous is because they feel like they have a lot of pressure to get the job. Okay. So they have a lot of pressure to get the job. And because of that pressure, they're thinking to themselves, this is my only interview. If I don't get this one, then I'm not getting any internship for this summer, or I won't have a job for the next 2 months. Right. And all that pressure builds up and it actually makes them choke more. Okay. So those are the reasons why we tend to see people. There might be other reasons, but those are, I would say, the two primary reasons for people choking on an interview. Okay. So what can we do to actually prevent choking? Okay. So point number three here is how to prepare for interviews. A few things that we're going to do. One is we need to work on preparation. Two is we need to actually learn how to warm up properly. And three, we need to know how to slow down when it comes to dealing with questions we don't know the answer to. Okay. So how do we do this? Okay. Well, how to prepare for interviews. This is a big one because a lot of people think that preparing for interviews is simply going through question after question after question after question, just simply practicing the same old questions and rehearsing them to the point where you become a robot. You don't want to do that because if you are rehearsing questions like that, you get to the actual interview and you sound like a robot because you're just rehearsing word for word something you maybe even wrote down or noted down. That's not what someone wants to hear. An interview is a conversation. Okay. An interview is a conversation. So, really, the methodology that we use here is 20% of your interview preparation is going to be practicing questions. So, practice, questions like, tell me about yourself, or tell me about a time you led a project and faced a challenge, right? Those are simple questions you can prepare for, and you definitely should do that. But that should only be about one fifth of your time. The other 80%, and this is going to be a little bit different from what you've probably heard before, maybe you've never heard before. The other 80% is enhancing your social game, okay? So the biggest issue that people have when they come to interviews is they're super nervous. Well, how do you address that? Well, you have to lean into that nervousness. What makes you nervous, right? If I tell you to go and talk to a random stranger and give them a compliment about their shoes, you're gonna feel a bit weirded out. It's like, Ethan, I don't want to go talk to that person. I don't even know who they are. Like, what if they like scream at me or something, right? That means you're nervous. That means you're not used to talking to strangers, and an interview is talking to a stranger. That's why you're nervous. Okay. So you need to enhance your social game. That's the other 80% of this. Enhancing social games means going out in public, go out on campus, go out in the streets of Toronto, wherever you are. And something that you can practice is go and give two people a compliment about anything. Hey, I really like your shoes today. Just wanted to say that. And then keep walking. That's it. Super simple. It will make their day and you're going to get used to leaning into that discomfort, right? Your heart's going to be racing. You're like, "Oh my gosh, that was really weird." But cuz chances are you probably haven't really done that before, right? Intentionally, right? So I would say start off there, and then what you're going to do is you want to build up, right? So build up on levels. So the first level to enhancing your social game would be like going out and giving someone random, someone completely random. I'm talking about someone you've never seen before. Give them a random compliment on their shoes or something, maybe the outfit is really cool or they have a sick chain, whatever. The next step from there is try to actually have a conversation now with one person that you don't know. So maybe you're sitting on a subway, person's beside you. Hey, what are you listening to there? Oh, rock music. Okay, nice. Which albums do you like? Oh, me too. I really like that album too by Fleetwood Mac. Rumors. That's a cool album. What was your favorite song? Right. Start a conversation. Practice conversing. One of the best ways I learned to converse really well was I used to take Ubers a lot, and I would always force myself to talk to the Uber driver. And because of that, I had conversations with just the most random people, complete strangers, but we had some great conversations, and that really taught me how to actually converse better. So start talking to people, and that's pretty much the highest level. If you can hold a conversation with someone completely random, by the time you get into an interview, it's almost impossible. Like when I get to interviews today, guys, I don't choke at all because I'm so used to talking to strangers all the time. I've talked to hundreds of strangers in public. And for me to go into an interview, it's like I almost don't even feel nervous sometimes because I'm just used to it, especially with my day job too. I do consulting. So I'm constantly talking to kind of strangers. They're my clients, but I'm meeting a lot of them for the first time, right? So you need to enhance your social game. That's going to be the bread and butter of preparing for interviews. The last 20% is actually practicing those questions, okay? So, a little mindset shift there, paradigm shift. Number four, you need to warm up for your interviews to prevent choking. Okay. So, what does a warm up? What does a warm up even entail for an interview? Let me walk you through. So, a warm up for an interview is going to be number one is social game. So, just like we talked about before, get out there, give two people a compliment, and then just randomly do 10 jumping jacks in the middle of somewhere, in the middle of like a baseball diamond, in the middle of a soccer field, in the middle of the streets of Toronto. Just randomly do 10 jumping jacks, like maybe an hour or two before your interview. It's going to feel super weird because why is this guy doing jumping jacks in the middle of Toronto? But that's the point of it. The more discomfort you feel and the more you work through it, the more you face it, your brain starts to adapt and realize, oh, this isn't even scary at all. This is fine. I'm just going to carry on. And that way, by the time you get to the interview, it's like, yeah, I'm not scared of this. I just did 10 jumping jacks in the middle of Toronto and people were looking at me like I'm a complete fool. I can have a normal conversation with an interviewer. That's fine. Right? So you want to get to that point. So go do your social game, practice outside, talking to strangers, do something random like 10 jumping jacks or 10 push-ups in the middle of Toronto or wherever you are. Acting monologue, this is one of my favorite practices that I do with my clients. It really helps people warm up. So you can grab a friend or you can just do this on your own. Find one of your favorite movies or TV shows and search up like monologue, right? And if you're doing it with a friend, do dialogue, right? Because that's conversation between two people. And search up a monologue from your favorite movie and just practice rehearsing it. So read it once through, just normally without any emotion. And then before you actually go in and act it out, think about what is the intention that I want to deliver, right? So think about the intention that I want to deliver. Am I trying to be very pensive here? Am I trying to be very angry? What is the message I want to deliver? Keep that in mind and then act it out. Just with your whole heart, just act it out as if you are that person. Are you Harry Potter right now? And you're mad because was it, I don't know, Voldemort killed his parents or something? I don't know, act it out. Bring that anger, bring that emotion. It's going to help you be a lot more emotionally versatile on the actual interview, and you're just going to come across as a much more socially calibrated person on the interview. People will love it. Okay, so practice an acting monologue. That's a really fun practice to do. Tongue twisters, these are amazing for your speech. Okay, six thick thickle or thistle sticks. Okay, so that's one you can do right there. Let me type that out for you. So six thick thistle, not thickle, thistle sticks. Okay, as you go through each letter or word here, you want to make sure that every single letter is coming out. Six. Six. You can even use your hand, just like I'm doing here, to kind of pretend you're throwing a dart for each punctuation, right? So six thick thickle or thistle sticks. At the CKS at the end of sticks, you really want to hit that almost like a snare on a drum. Sticks, sticks. Practice these. Make sure every single letter is coming out. And what you're going to find is your voice, in order to get these words out, you actually need to speak a bit louder. So you're going to push more air up into your speech. and that's going to make you sound more confident, and your voice is going to become a bit lower, right? So whether regardless of what gender you are, that actually helps to have somewhat of a lower voice sometimes because it will make you sound more confident. Okay. Six thistle sticks. Three gray geese. Three gray geese. Okay, I sound like a complete fool, but trust me, this will help you a lot with your speech. Three gray geese, not grease, geese. Okay, and then one of my favorites, you know New York, you need New York, you know you need unique New York. Okay, so that's you know New York, you need New York, you need unique New York. Okay, so that's a bit of a tough one, but it's really fun once you get it. You know New York, you need New York, you need unique New York. Okay, try to hit every single letter in that, every single word. Okay, practice those for a bit. And honestly, I would even practice these outside. Go for outside and just talk to them, say them out loud. I used to do this all the time on the way to work, and I would just say them out loud, and I would look like a complete fool saying these. People would think I'm actually crazy, but it helps with the social lubrication, and it also helps with your speech, your enunciation. Okay. Lastly, three deep breaths. Okay. So you're going to breathe in through your nose, breathe out through your mouth, and you want to close your eyes when you do this, and close your eyes for three deep breaths. And it will help you relax a lot. And this is the last part of your exercise before you get into the actual interview. Okay. This is going to bring you back down to zero, and you are going to feel so relaxed. You're going to feel great. Okay. So, guys, this is the warm up you can use. You don't have to do every single part of this. It would be great if you can. You're going to feel amazing when you go into interview if you do this. Okay. Amazing. And it's really going to prevent choking. Lastly, everyone. So, how to deal with questions you don't know. A lot of people get so stuck on this. Okay. Now, really, when it comes to dealing with a question you don't know the answer to, guys, every single interview you have is probably going to have these situations, or at least most of them will. Now, what you want to do in this situation is first realize that it's okay to take a pause. You see how I just paused right there? It felt a bit weird or awkward. It's like, oh, is this guy still talking? But really, what I'm doing right here is I'm just taking a little pause, and someone's going to say to me, hey, Ethan, tell me about a time you led a project and you faced an obstacle. And let's say I don't know, I actually don't even know an answer up front. So I might just say, oh, that's a good question. I'm just going to take 30 seconds to think about this. They'll say, okay, take your time. And I will take sometimes a really long time to think, sometimes even up to 30 seconds to think for an answer, because I really need to think about, do I even have an answer for this, right? Because recruiters and hiring managers would rather see you take the time to think and actually give a coherent and cogent answer than just start spieling about something that doesn't even make sense, right? People want to know, especially if it's a deeper question about yourself, that if you're just going right into the answer, it's almost like you didn't really even think about the answer. There's not much emotion attached to it. I want a deeper answer. Okay. So take some time and don't worry about pausing. It's completely fine. Okay. And then one thing we want to remember too is a little mindset shift here. Okay. So the point of an interview isn't so that you can answer every single question perfectly. It's not a test, guys. What they're really trying to get to know is who you are as a person. Okay. Do you match the culture? Right? Who are you as a person? Right? Because if they ask you a question you don't know the answer to, and you completely shut down and break down and just you just mess up and you choke, then what does that say as a person? Well, you're probably not good at handling stress under pressure. You're not used to feeling this type of challenge. You're not used to being in situations where you don't know the answer to something, which means if you're going for a consultant role, I'm kind of worried about this because, you know, you get as a consultant, you get asked questions all the time that you don't know the answer to. And if right now you're telling me that, at least you're showing me in this interview that you are completely shutting down simply because I asked you one question that you don't know the answer to, I don't know if you're a good fit for a consultant, okay, or an investment banker or a salesperson, okay. So the mindset shift here is people are not looking for the perfect answer. What people are looking for is how will you deal with the situation if you don't know the answer, right? So if someone says, Ethan, tell me about a time you faced a challenge within a teamwork exercise? Hmm. If I really don't have anything to talk about here, I'm not just going to sit silently and say, I don't know the answer. You're going to fail the interview. What you want to say instead is, yeah, I don't recall an exact moment when I was specifically in a team setting, but let me tell you a very similar a very similar time when I did this, right? So you can give tangent replies or similar replies as long as it's somewhere along the same line of what they're asking for, right? So again, or if it's a technical question that they're asking, you can just say, I don't know the exact syntax to write this code, but let me walk you through exactly what my line of thinking is, right? Because at least you're giving them something to feed off of. You don't want to leave them with nothing, okay? So, depending on the situation, if it's like a behavioral or situational question, you can give like a tangent response, or if it's a technical question, you can really just give some type of explanation for how your reasoning works, right? So, guys, this is really how you want to stop choking in interviews. It's pretty simple. A lot of this comes down to running your social game and enhancing it. But over this video, we've talked about what exactly choking is. It's really just our fight, flight, or freeze response. It's completely normal. Everyone gets to there at some point. All of the best interviewers at some point were chokers. Why we choke? Well, we choke because we don't prepare, we don't warm up, and we don't really face or fear of rejection by practicing social game. Okay. So, how to prepare for interviews? Well, you could do your research and do your practice questions and learn about the company and the job. That's 20% of it. But the other 80% is actually going out there, meeting people, and enhancing your social game. Okay. Now, lastly, the warm up here. Go through this warm up. Try it. Try the tongue twisters. Try the acting monologue. Try enhancing your social game out in public. And then lastly, take 3 deep breaths with your eyes closed. You will feel amazing. And then lastly, how do we deal with questions we don't know? Well, we pause. We think and then we answer. And then mindset shift too to take off some pressure is it's not about always having a perfect answer. It's about showing how you deal with uncertainty. You can craft a response that's tangent to what they're asking for. If it's a type of a behavioral question, which is tell me about a time you did this, how did you behave? Or what you can do if it's a technical question is if you don't know the exact syntax or code to write out, just basically tell them like, hey, I don't know the exact syntax here, but this is what I would do, and this is my line of thinking here. Okay. So this is how to stop choking interviews. Again, my name is Ethan Young. I'm a career coach here. If you want to connect with me, if you have any questions here, you need help finding your next job, connect with me on LinkedIn. It's going to be in the description below, and it's also on my YouTube header description. And again, my name is Ethan Young, career coach, former Scotiabank intern, current consultant at current software consultant at Oracle. And I hope you guys have a good day.